Why can't we see God? But somehow, the more people study the universe, the closer they feel to Him. In many interfaith debates, a strange pattern appears. Someone mocks another simply because their God cannot be seen. The assumption is simple. If something is real, it must be visible, measurable, and physically present. But this logic quietly contradicts everyday human experience. We trust things we cannot see all the time. Gravity, thoughts, emotions, even the sense of meaning that drives our decisions. The mockery often comes not from strong reasoning, but from discomfort with the unseen. It becomes easier to laugh than to reflect. Yet the person being mocked usually stands on a different foundation, one that values signs, patterns, and inner recognitions over physical display. The debate then is not really about visibility, but about what counts as valid evidence. When someone limits truth only to what the eyes can capture, they may unknowingly close the door to divine understanding. There is a quiet moment that often happens in deep thinking, not when someone is arguing, but when they are alone reflecting. It's the moment when questions stop being about winning and start being about understanding. In that space, the universe feels less like random noise and more like a message waiting to be read. People begin to notice patterns they once ignored, connections they once dismissed. It's not dramatic, not a sudden flash of light, but a slow shift in awareness. The same sky, the same earth, the same life, but seen differently. This is where the unseen starts to feel present, not through the eyes, but through realization. And for many, that moment becomes the turning point when belief is no longer something they argue about, but something they quietly recognize. Human beings often push beyond their limits, especially when curiosity turns into demand. Wanting to see God physically is one of those demands that sounds reasonable on the surface, but ignores the nature of existence itself. Not everything that exists is meant to be perceived through human senses. Our eyes are limited. They cannot see air, radiations, or even most of the universe. Yet we accept these realities through their effects. Expecting the Creator to be confined within human perception reduces the infinite to something measurable, something controllable. That expectation reflects more about human ego than about truth. There is also a hidden contradiction. If God were fully visible and physically accessible, belief would no longer require reflection or sincerity. It would become mere observation. The test of understanding would disappear, replaced by simple reaction. Sometimes not seeing is part of the design, not a flaw in it. The simplest way to understand why we cannot see God is actually very close to how a child thinks. Imagine comparing things from the smallest to the biggest. A tiny ant cannot understand a human, and a human cannot fully grasp something infinitely greater. As things get bigger, more complex, and more powerful, they move beyond the ability of smaller beings to fully perceive them. We cannot see air, but we feel it. We cannot see gravity, but we see its effects. Now imagine something far greater than the universe itself, beyond size, beyond form, beyond limitation. Expecting to see that with human eyes is like expecting a drop of water to contain the entire ocean. The limitation is not in what exists, but in what we are capable of perceiving. So the answer is simple. We don't see God not because He is absent, but because He is far beyond the level of what our senses can capture. There is a different path, one that does not rely on physical sight, but on reflection and reasoning. When a person genuinely seeks truth using logic, observation, and honest questioning, something begins to shift. Patterns in nature, the precisions of systems, and the consistency of laws start pointing beyond themselves. It is not a sudden vision, but a gradual realization. Guidance in this sense does not come as a voice or a shape, but as clarity. A person begins to see through understanding rather than through the eyes. This process requires humility because it asks the seeker to accept that truth might not appear in the way they expect. The more sincere the search, the clearer the directions becomes. It is as if the path opens step by step, not forcing the live, but inviting it. In this way, logic becomes a bridge and reflection becomes a form of vision. Many areas of scientific research unintentionally push people toward a deeper sense of awe that feels like seeing beyond the material world. In cosmology, the fine-tuning of universal constants, like gravity or the strength of electromagnetic force, raises questions about why everything is so precisely balanced to allow life. In biology, the complexity of DNA with its coded information and self-replication feels less like chaos and more like an organized system. In physics, the laws governing the universe remain consistent across unimaginable distances, as if everything follows a unified command. Even in neuroscience, the mystery of consciousness, how awareness exists beyond physical matter, remains unsolved. These discoveries do not directly show God, but they point towards something greater than randomness. For many researchers, these realizations grow slowly until the question is no longer, is there something? But what is behind all this order? Interestingly, many scientists, people trained to question, doubt, and analyze, arrive at the belief in God despite initial resistance. Some begin their journey with skepticism or even hostility towards religion, assuming it conflicts with reason. But deep exploration often leads them to unexpected conclusions. The deeper they study the universe, the more they encounter order, balance, and fine-tuning that seem too precise to be random. This does not automatically force belief, but it creates tension between what is observed and what is assumed. For some, that tension becomes a turning point. They start reconsidering their earliest stance, not because they were told to believe, but because their own investigations led them there. Their discovery is not about seeing God physically, but recognizing signs that point toward a higher reality. In many cases, the journey from denial to belief is driven by evidence, not blind faith, but a thoughtful reflection. In the end, the question is not why we cannot see God, but whether we are willing to understand. Beyond sight, physical vision is only one way of knowing, and often not the deepest one. The world is full of signs waiting to be interpreted, not just observed. Mockery fades when understanding grows and demands are softened. When humility takes its place, those who insist on seeing may miss what is already being shown in different forms. Meanwhile, those who reflect, question sincerely, and remain open often find something more powerful than physical proof: conviction. This conviction is not forced, and it is not inherited blindly. It is built through a process of thinking, questioning, and being guided along the way. The unseen then is not empty. It is filled with meaning for those willing to look differently. Sometimes true vision begins exactly where physical sight ends.